There are legends round here, even if only in their own minds. Forgotten, but not dead. Some have tried to stop them, but they keep coming back. Coming to entertain you. They are the Crystal Lake Soldiers.
Well, welcome back, campers. This is episode 9 of the Crystal Lake Soldiers podcast. I'm Isaiah. This week joined by Mark. Both Sean and Ted are gone for the weekend. But we do have a special guest, my buddy Jason, who has been making short films for quite a while now. Because our main focus of tonight is we're going to be talking short films and fan films, so we wanted to get his expertise in on the conversation tonight. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing great.
I'm doing great, man. Doing pretty good.
Awesome. So, just to kind of start things off here, just as a reminder, this week me and Ted both saw Three from Hell, and we did our first movie review, which has been posted. There are 2 different versions of this review. We have a spoiler-free version, which is about 21 minutes long, and we have our spoiler-filled version, which is about 47 minutes long. So please check those out if you either saw Three from Hell or are wanting to see it, because that is coming out on DVD and Blu-ray next month on the 15th. And to kind of go along with that, just kind of sticking with Three from Hell here for a minute. So the Fathom Events thing happened this past week, where it had the limited 3-night release in about 500 to 700 theaters. This movie was made on a $3 million budget. And in that 3-day limited release in just 500 to 700 theaters, it made a $1.92 million on those nights total. So, because of the overwhelming success of this event, Fathom Events is bringing it back for one more night only. And this is happening actually the day before the Blu-ray drops, which is on October 14th. So if you missed out on being able to see it during this 3-night run, you'll get one more opportunity to see it in theaters before it's released on Blu-ray the next day. So the cool thing about this is that, kind of like with the 3-night run, they had different things every night that happened with it. With this 4th night that they're doing in October, you get a special introduction by Rob Zombie, and you also get an alternate commemorative poster that's coming with it.
Man, I'm probably going to check it out on the 14th when they open it up again. I didn't get to check it out last time. And I'll probably pick up the Blu-ray as well. Love A House of 1,000 Corpses, love Devil's Rejects.
Like what me and Ted covered in our review is we both absolutely love the movie. It's well worth it. And I will be definitely picking up the 4K Blu-ray of this, because they are getting a 4K Blu-ray for this, which it's a 3-disc set. So you get the regular Blu-ray, the 4K Blu-ray, and the DVD. What's cool is that with the Blu-ray editions is you get a 4-part documentary that comes along with it for the special features. And if you've bought any of number of the previous Rob Zombie movies, usually they have a documentary. Like the first Halloween movie, that had a 4-hour documentary for this movie. So it seems like with this one, it's going to have kind of the same thing, where it's probably going to be close to a 4-hour documentary on the making of this movie. If you get just the regular DVD version, though, you only get the first part of that 4-part documentary. So that's something to kind of keep in mind when you're going to make this purchase. So it might be more worth it to shell out the extra money to get the Blu-ray version versus the DVD version. So that's coming up. That's going to be cool. And I'm excited because I'm thinking about going back to see it again in the theater, because it was that good. So really cool that they're bringing it back because of the overwhelming success and how many people actually went out to the movie. So that's awesome. Now, in other news, we got word this week that Wes Craven's estate actually has regained the rights to the original Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy Krueger as the character. This is interesting because obviously we know that what's been going on for a while now is the rights issues with Friday the 13th is in the same situation where Victor Miller, after 35 years, decided he wanted to invoke his right to gain back, ownership of that story, or that first movie and the characters in it. So this is cool because Craven's estate right away got those rights back. There was no pushback from Warner Brothers or New Line. They got the rights back. Now, what that means is that they get the U.S. release rights, so they can go with whoever they want. But Warner Brothers and New Line still retain the rights for international distribution. So it's nice that this got kind of wrapped up in a nice little bow and no real pushback, unlike what's going on with Friday the 13th between Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller.
Yeah, man. Well, I think it belonged to Wes anyways,
right.
So his estate deserves the rights. And maybe we could get a movie out of this, maybe.
Right, because a lot of people have been wanting another movie, especially because
Robert Englund said he would do it again.
Yep.
So, come on, let's go.
Yep, between him and Heather said she would come back, so, there was talk a while back that they were wanting to basically do what Halloween did and do like a direct sequel to the first one. And this would be the perfect opportunity with Craven's estate, having those rights and whatnot. They can shop that around if they wanted to. And
hell yeah.
I think it's great for everybody, everybody involved. And, obviously they could still go through New Line if they wanted to actually produce the movie if they want to. But if they decide they don't want to do that because they've got everything going on with like the Conjuring universe and everything else that they're doing, they can go to somebody else to get it made, which is great. So I think overall it's going to be beneficial for everybody, especially those that want to see Robert one last time be Freddy Krueger.
Yes.
And
please.
It's needed.
Let's leave that Jackie Earle Haley in the past.
Right? Yeah, as much as I
can't let you guys go out that way.
Yeah, as much as I like Jackie Earle Haley, and I think he was the right choice to play Freddy, that whole movie was a dumpster fire to begin with, and the writing was terrible, and he had to just kind of roll with the punches in that one. So he kind of got screwed over in that respect. But yeah, hopefully this all works out where we get another Elm Street with him. So speaking of kind of older movies and whatnot, George Romero. So obviously George Romero made the Living Dead movies, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and whatnot. So back early in his career, he actually was hired to create basically it was a movie, but it was a PSA at the same time. It's called The Amusement Park. And it was basically a PSA about age discrimination, and it was a 60-minute film. So this whole thing got made, but it was never released. They decided against releasing it, and it just kind of sat there, and like hardly anybody's ever seen this. And this got brought up after he had died about this movie that was never released, that his family was trying to get released finally after all these years. Because, I mean, you think about it, it's been almost, 50 years, pretty close to 50 years since that was made. And it's never seen the light of day, really. And so they recovered the footage for this. They recovered all the reels of film for this, and they did a crowdfunding campaign at the end of last year to actually get this thing restored so that it could be released. And on October 12th of this year, they are finally releasing this 60-minute film called The Amusement Park, and they're actually going to be premiering it in Pittsburgh at the Regent Square Theater, which is kind of cool that something that Romero made all these years ago is finally getting its due release. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's pretty cool, man.
I'd love to see what the investors found to be too gruesome. Like, by today's standards, what does it actually look like?
Yeah,
that'd be wild.
I want to see that happen with the director's cut to Friday the 13th Part 7.
Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great, especially if they could find the footage? Because wasn't it something they were saying that the footage might be lost or something?
I think it got thrown out.
Yeah. That would be cool if they could find that and get that done too.
Yeah.
Because John Carl Buechler's movie just got really just cut the fuck up.
Butchered. Absolutely butchered.
Yeah, that was a injustice to say the least. So, but it's cool getting to see Romero getting another movie released this long after his death, and one that nobody's ever been able to see before. So I think that's cool, and it may not be the greatest movie because I mean this was early in his career, but you know, getting anything released that nobody's ever really seen of him is I think is cool because he's my favorite director, you know, of anything, and I think it's awesome.
Godfather of zombie stories.
Yep,
absolutely my favorite zombie movie ever, Night of the Living Dead. It's a timeless classic.
Yep. Oh, it's just a kind of side note because I got that. When I went to Crypticon, Kansas City, I got that Criterion version of Night of the Living Dead. Holy shit, is that beautiful.
Nice.
Because they redid that whole thing and cleaned that sucker up so good. It's like, it almost seems like it's a different movie. It's just so beautiful. It's just ridiculous. All the work that went into that, it's just so fantastic. Kind of the same thing that they did with Scanners too. I mean that movie ended up really beautiful too, you know, after being in Criterion, but that's just kind of a side note. So sticking with upcoming movies, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The last film we got, and this whole series has been so convoluted already. So the last movie we got was a prequel to the original movie, and that was called Leatherface, and that came out in 2017. It just basically kind of went through what happened and how Leatherface became Leatherface, basically. So when that movie was about to be released, the rights for the original film actually went back to Kim Henkel, who, you know, helped produce the original movie with Tobe Hooper. So there was a lot of talk about, you know, what was going to be happening with the series after that. And, you know, there's been talk of a TV show and all these other things, which still may happen. But news came out recently that they are producing another movie. And this is going to be through Legendary Films. And the person that they got to come produce the movie and kind of oversee everything is Fede Alvarez, who, if you're not familiar with him, he is the one responsible for the Evil Dead remake, as well as Don't Breathe. So his work is pretty stellar. And to have him kind of overseeing it is kind of the right move. It's not known if he's going to actually be directing or not, but the fact that he's kind of overseeing it is kind of cool. Now, the one thing that with this whole thing is that their take on this is going to be another direct sequel to the original film. So if you remember, they've already done this with 2013's Texas Chainsaw 3D. So they've already done a direct sequel to the original recently, and they're basically going back and doing another one.
Well, I haven't seen the Leatherface. I heard so many bad things about it, and I just never got around to watching it. But this new one seems like it's got a lot of potential. I love the story. I love a lot of the sequels.
Yeah.
The Evil Dead remake was probably my favorite remake I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Could be good.
His work is great. And yeah, my only gripe is just them going back and making another direct sequel to the original when they've already done it. It's like, why don't you just tell a different story or continue after that or something, you know?
They're trying to outdo Halloween.
Yeah, and you know, it may end up being good. You know, we don't really know just because they're just kind of in the planning stages, and they may end up changing it. So, you know, who really knows what may end up actually happening with this? Hopefully it ends up being good, especially, you know, that the rights are back in kind of the original camp's hands, so to speak, and they've got a competent director, producer, you know, kind of overseeing the project. I think it's got all the right ingredients to be good as long as they can pull it off, because, you know, Texas Chainsaw 3D was terrible. It was a terrible movie. It was a gimmick movie for 3D. For that, it was worth seeing in the theater just for that aspect. But beyond that, it's not a good movie in any aspect.
Is that the one where she was related to him?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, see, I like that movie just for her.
Get him, cuz. That line just took me right out of the movie.
Yeah, that's true. It was a terrible movie.
But in the same breath, though, Leatherface actually wasn't that bad. I know a lot of people shit on it, but it's actually, I would rather watch that over Texas Chainsaw 3D. It's actually a decent origin story for him. And it was pretty well done, you know, for what it was. I mean, it's definitely low budget. It's not going to be up to the caliber of even like, you know, Halloween 2018. It's nowhere even in the ballpark, but for a decent video on demand movie, which is what it was, it's not bad. And it's definitely worth checking out if you can find it on something like Netflix or something like that. So I would say check it out if you get the chance. But it's not the greatest movie, but it's not a bad movie either. So that's exciting that they're hopefully going to do something good with this. It's got me a little bit excited. So coming up, actually, in the 3 movies that we had trailers for this week are coming up in October. So they're all during the Halloween season for sure. Up first is a Netflix original movie. It's called In the Tall Grass, and this comes out October 4th. So this is based off of a novella that was written by Stephen King and Joe Hill. And this trailer looked creepy as shit.
Yes.
And it's like, I don't even know how to really explain it. It's just kind of, because they don't really show you anything, which is great. So it's like, you know, it kind of gets you wondering, you know, what's this about? And it really caught my attention because not a lot of the trailers for the Netflix movies that have come out have really like caught my attention like this one did.
Yeah, I thought it looked good. It looked spooky. It looked very Stephen King.
Yeah, it looks really good, and I'm excited for it because I'm definitely gonna, you know, check that out when it releases on the 4th.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch that.
Yeah, that's gonna be on my list of. I'm planning on watching hopefully one movie a night during October.
Actually, believe it or not, don't have anything bad to say about any of the trailers we got this week.
No, all the trailers actually are pretty good. Yeah. So let's talk about the next one. So this one comes out October 18th, and this one actually is the one I'm most excited for out of all 3 of these. This one's called The Lighthouse.
Oh, it looks so good.
It looks really good.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. So you got Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. I'm still not a big fan of Robert Pattinson, but we'll see what happens, especially with this.
He looked good in the trailer, I thought.
Yeah. No, he really did.
Did you ever see The Rover?
I don't think I have.
No. With
I don't think I've
Guy
heard of
Pearce. It was an Australian, kind of an indie movie, and dare I say, I would say it was on par with the original Mad Max.
Okay.
And it was kind of like a dystopian future, not so far off. Guy Pearce is kind of that rover, that wanderer kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, Robert Pattinson, he nailed it.
Okay.
So that's why I'm not afraid to have him as, like, you know, doing these kind of movies. He's great.
Yeah, this one, especially this movie, has got me excited. Number one, I mean, anything with Willem Dafoe is usually pretty good. The whole aspect of this movie too, because number one, it's set in the 1890s. And on top of that, they made the decision to actually shoot this on 35 millimeter black and white film. So this is...
It looks beautiful.
It does look beautiful. It looks amazing. And the aspect ratio is so different from what you're used to nowadays. It's a good throwback, you know, to older film. And kind of that whole trailer, it like gave me goosebumps. It was so good. It was fantastic. And, you know, it's like just seeing that descent into madness too. I
Yeah.
love these kind of movies just for that aspect too. And Willem Dafoe, he can get fucking batshit crazy. So
kidding.
I think this is going to be a good one. And it's made by the guy that made The Witch. And, The Witch was probably one of the best horror films, at least, based off of most people's opinions in the last 5 to 10 years, which I thought The Witch was pretty good. And I'm excited to see what he does with this, because The Witch was definitely different. And it was kind of refreshing, what he did with that. And so it'll be cool to see what he does with this, and it's got me really, really excited. But the final movie that we're talking about that's coming out here in October, that we watched the trailers for, is called Girl on the Third Floor. This comes out October 25th. Now, the weird thing with this one is it stars a previous WWE wrestler by the name of CM Punk. So this is like the first movie I've ever seen him in. I know I've heard a few other movies that are coming up that he's going to be in. So this is a little different, and basically this is kind of like a haunted house kind of movie. And just from what you see in the trailer, it doesn't look like he does too bad of a job.
No, it looked good. It was like the house was alive.
Yep.
The effects look great. His performance looked, at least in the trailer, it looked good.
That one seems interesting.
I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to as well. It's it looks strange enough that it's probably gonna be one I'll probably like. And then the last movie that we're talking about, this one actually, so not all of them come out in October. So this one actually comes out in November, which is right in time for winter, because this one takes place during the winter time. So this one's called The Lodge, and this comes out November 15th. Now this one was made by the director that made Goodnight Mommy. That movie was like creepy as hell. If you haven't seen Goodnight Mommy, I do recommend it. It is a foreign film, so you do have subtitles and stuff like that, so kind of be aware of that. But like the tension that this director can build is amazing. And I'm kind of seeing the same kind of vibe with, that tension being built. And basically what you get from the trailer is that these two children are staying with their father's new girlfriend or wife or whatever the case may be. And they're stranded at this lodge, basically, or this cabin, this family cabin, or whatever it is. And you find out that this woman had a previous association with a cult that ended up killing themselves, but she didn't partake in that, in the suicide thing. And it's like it's coming back to haunt her, or, people are coming after her, or whatever the case may be, because you don't really know. And that's kind of the same kind of thing that they did with like Goodnight Mommy, because you didn't really know what was going on, or who was evil or who wasn't. And so I kind of like that. And this really put off that vibe quite a bit with this.
Yeah, it looked interesting. It's got that kid from It.
Yep, the one that played Bill Denborough in the new movies.
Yeah, young Bill. It looked like a psychological type thing, and I'm into those.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, and that's definitely what Goodnight Mommy was more psychological kind of mystery thriller with horror elements in it. So yeah, I love those kind of movies too, and this one definitely piqued my interest with this, especially because their second movie ended up being in English, so versus because I think the original one was in Swedish or something like that. I don't quite remember, but yeah, it looks really good. So the main focus of our discussion tonight is we're gonna be talking about short films and fan films, because we've been seeing a lot lately, especially if you look at Friday the 13th, which is kind of our cup of tea for everything, is because of the whole rights issues and the legal BS that's going on between Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller. You've got all these fan films that are being released. You've obviously got these stellar ones like Never Hike Alone, which is, like we talked about last week, is becoming an actual web series with Tom Matthews, coming back, as well as other people that have been in Friday the 13th films. And so that's exciting. They've got an Indiegogo going for that, like we talked about, where they're trying to raise the funds for the first episode to get that filmed, and then their plan is to release 3 or 4 other episodes throughout next year for that. So that's cool. But short films and fan films, I've been watching these for years, and I remember the first fan film I ever saw was actually a Jason versus Michael fan film, and this was right around the time that they were making Freddy versus Jason, and I remember loving that so much and just what they did, and I thought, oh, these guys could make a movie. I mean, looking back at it now, I mean, the quality isn't that great, but that just kind of, got me thinking of wanting to make my own fan films and different things like that. And that got me started with my buddies, from high school. We made our own Friday the 13th fan film, which never got released. We made our own Halloween fan film that we never finished and got released. So, I mean, it kind of started the path of me wanting to do video and that kind of thing. And that definitely played a role in getting me, where I wanted to go, going to school for video and different things like that, even on top of my love for movies and all that. So that's what we want to talk about tonight, is just kind of some of our favorite short films, fan films, that kind of thing, and kind of discussing even, going about how we've made certain ones too. Because obviously we have Jason here, who I've worked on with some videos, and he's done his own short films that have been put into festivals and that kind of thing. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yeah, don't forget fan film the Predator. That was our Predator fan film was that was legit. That was that was some serious some effects that you put together in that, and
oh god, early After Effects.
Yep, and the found footage of that was that asteroid over Russia or whatever that was.
Yes.
And putting that at the beginning, oh man, that was gold. And it made it look so well at the time. Like, we're looking at this like this is Hollywood, baby. and now
it's such trash. It's so cringy.
Oh,
you know what? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave a link down below here on the page for this, so that if you guys want to check that out, you guys can go check that out on YouTube, because it's still up, and it's very cringeworthy. It's not something I mean, it was fun. It was a fun experience. It was a lot of fun doing, but it's very, very cringy. It's it's 10 years old now. Actually, we made it 10 years ago.
That's insane.
So
now I know what I'm doing tonight after the show.
Oh man, make yourself a big bowl of popcorn. Get comfy, get right in there. Oh man, it's great.
Hell yeah.
Oh god. Oh, remember when we did that one, the evangelist? It's
Oh
basically
man,
like a hitman, but he was an evangelist.
Well, as soon as we heard the new release from Johnny Cash, it was just, or no, did we originally do it to?
Man Comes Around.
Yeah, right. And we oh yeah, we gotta make something to this. And we were in our back lot, in our classic back lot. We had to put something together for it.
Yeah, that one was interesting because YouTube kept taking it down because of that song, because they kept flagging it for copyright and wouldn't have it showing. I had to end up changing the music, and so I ended up changing it to Shipping Off to Boston.
Yeah.
I Dropkick Murphy.
I was just gonna say that was part of it too. Yep, it's good.
Which ended up working out. I mean, the song doesn't match up with what the whole thing was, but I mean, it was kick ass, and it just made it that good.
Yep. Oh man,
me back in my skinny days.
Right. Oh man, you and me both, brother.
And I had hair.
Right. We're different people. We've transformed, but that I think that's a good segue into making short films in general. The first ones you make are always going to be cringy.
Oh yeah.
I thought I had to make the perfect thing, and the more people that I talk to, the more filmmakers that I talk to, it's no, make as many crappy ones as you can make, because it'll only make your next one better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I agree.
It's pretty much with anything creative, though.
It's true. got to start somewhere. You got to start with that Predator.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's really hard to get noticed in this world.
Yeah. It is,
Right.
because you got to stand out somehow.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's really like right place, right time kind of thing, but also you're, having that quality content as well. It's
You gotta have the
be, like,
dedication to keep going is what it is.
yeah.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
it is.
Like well, how I would put it too, like, you can, through making really crappy videos or crappy short films, like you kind of find what works for you, what doesn't. You kind of find, wow, I really am interested in this part of it. And you kind of find your voice through it too. Like, I found that making serious film wasn't really for me, because
Yeah.
when I had to go to a film festival and talk about it, I found myself like, how do I talk about something serious? I don't know how to do it.
Right.
And it was torturous, and I did it, but like, I found like I never want to talk on a serious subject again when it comes to my creative work. Like, it's something that I'm glad I did, but it's like, no, I'll stick to killer clowns and people's heads getting cut off. It's a lot easier. Swamp buck.
Hell yeah.
Antlers through your belly. That's a little funner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree, because like if you were to try to get me to do like a serious video, I would struggle so hard. I mean, I'd probably be able to pull it off, but I would struggle so hard versus just doing something just wacky and out there and just fun. It's because I'm sure there's people out there that just love doing that kind of serious, more dramatic kind of thing, but it's just definitely something that just does not come easy for me. Definitely.
Right, and two, like the way I went about doing a little bit more serious experimental narrative stuff was I got a grant to do it, which is like incredible. It was like my first grant, but I also went into the grant knowing like, well, maybe I should, because nobody's gonna go into a grant thinking like, oh, I'm gonna make a slasher flick. They're gonna just throw money at me, like. No artist council in the world is going to give you money to make your slasher flick. But if you make something a little more serious, a more topical, yeah, of course, they'd love to give you money to first, to speak on something, that's near and dear to the community or whatever. But then I found myself like, it was almost like a conflict in the end. Like, well, I did this to make money, money to make the movie, but at the end of it, it's like, oh man, I really wish I would have just made something fun. But
yeah, and ultimately you got to love what you're doing too, because
right.
I mean, if you're just always struggling trying to do stuff, and this is even in just regular jobs too. I mean, if you're not loving what you're doing, I mean, really, what's the point? And I'm definitely in that boat where I'm not doing what I love to do currently, job wise. So I'm kind of preaching to the choir.
That's why we're here.
Right,
And,
exactly.
It's just like, and it's scary because, you want to do something, and then it's just taking that first step.
Yeah.
And, that first step for me was, because I love doing video. I'm still going to love doing video. But even with like the podcast, just taking that first step and just doing it, not expecting to make any money on this, because I'm still not expecting to make any money. But if it ends up coming that way, great. But, it's just taking those steps, even with video, just, because that's the one thing I struggled with for the longest time. And, we talked about before we started recording, just kind of our previous experiences, we'll say that, with video. And it got me to the point where it was like, my heart wasn't in it. And it was a struggle just to even get myself to do stuff video wise. But when I did it, it was great. Even looking back when you did Swamp Buck and I did the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
That I had a ball with. I mean, I recorded all that. I ended up editing that video. I mean, I had so much fun doing it. And then for a while there, I was doing like review videos on like unboxings for like Loot Crate and different things like that, or doing reviews on whatever else. And, I was doing that for a good solid year or 2 years straight, and I was enjoying it because I was doing it weekly at that point. It just took me to that point of just kind of just doing it and just getting into it. And I think that would be the same for me now if I were to try to, cause I've been talking about, I want to still do that short film withdrawal, which I still want to at some point. It's going to be a matter of me just taking that step just to get started and doing it. Cause I mean, ultimately I took the first step by writing the damn script, but now it's just a point of trying to location scouting and finding people to be in it, because I definitely don't want to be on camera, because I fucking hate being on camera. Yeah. I'm not an actor by any means.
What?
And you know what? I'm gonna leave another link down below for another short film that me and Jason did called The Box, and you'll see what I mean. I'm not an actor, and that one's fun. That one I had a lot of fun doing, and that one I can still watch every now and then just because it's cringy, but it's funny cringy.
Yeah, it works. It works.
It works well. Whereas Predator, that was kind of more of a serious thing. It's just cringy just because it's on a freaking like point and shoot camera that we recorded it.
The crazy thing I think about back to Predator was that I think through that I remember you getting some really cool connections out of it. That it's due to circumstances we didn't really make that happen, but the crazy thing, like, what if something could have came out of that? But, like, I think it all comes back to, like, what you're talking about is what we were talking about earlier was, like, creative fulfillment. Like, that's the whole reason why we used to do it back in the day, and that we continue our trying to find that fulfillment, whether it's podcasts, whether it's unboxing videos, and, like where we're here today. But, like, that creative fulfillment is everything for me, because like literally my paying job, because I don't make any money off of films. It's only been more recently, which is really cool, is I get an honorarium for one of the film festivals that I was accepted to screen at. They actually give the artists, anyone who was selected by the judges, they'll send an honorarium. I don't even know how much it is, but that's like the first time that's ever happened. But like the 9 to 5.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. But like my 9 to 5 is like, it's corporate zombie work, like putting together creative or promo for stuff, or mostly a lot of design, junk mail, like stuff people throw away, political stuff, boring. It's just boring. And
that shit is boring.
Yeah.
I mean, for the little bit I worked on that with you. Oh man. Oh, I was so bored. It's so hard to do.
I mean, it's fun that I get to use my skills to make money. I mean, getting the money is nice, but like to actually have creative fulfillment in it, that's another thing. And so like it started for me, like I volunteered making some posters for a film festival. And I don't know if I wanted to do films at that point, but I know like I had fun making videos and stuff. But like I knew that I can make a movie poster. I think that'd be really cool. So I helped different filmmakers make who didn't have a movie poster, or didn't have any any graphics for their film that's coming to the film festival. So I would just make them posters, and it turned into like something really awesome. And I still have a lot of relationships with the guys that I made posters for. And but that like made me kind of get into the film festival, and then on top of that, seeing how it worked, and like meeting filmmakers or people who are just as nerdy as you, who like aspects of film and talking about their craft, and like that really got me kind of like, oh yeah, I love this. And so like not to make money or anything, but like to help them out, that kind of what started me. Yeah. And then like give me enough courage to like, oh, I can make a short film, get in a film festival or two or something. And I think that's why Swamp Buck was like originally like one of our projects for school, and I made a movie trailer of it. Yep. And then when I was hired back at the college, it was like, well, you gotta make Swamp Buck now. And that's how it like started. And Rich like almost made me do it because he was so in love with Swamp Buck. And so I was like, okay, let's do Swamp Book. And then that was like kind of my first like real kind of short film, and that ended up, I looked the other day, it was like 7 film festivals it was at, and some were pretty legit. Other ones were like a bar in Peoria somewhere filming, but others like it got a commendation in England at a horror festival, and that was, I forgot that I got a commendation is like, we don't have enough spots for you to play your film because we got a lot of good ones, but, and a lot of times usually it turns into like, sorry, we can't accept your film, but they're like, we liked it so much, here's a commendation, here's some like laurels that you can put on your poster and stuff, saying, you know, we endorse your film. It's pretty cool.
That's cool.
It didn't play there,
Yeah,
so I still need an international showing, but like just people who like your stuff, and that's kind of like the best thrill of all, is having an audience of people who like laugh at the parts that you think are funny, you know, like and just reacting to your film. It's like, it's super addictive.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
But yeah, so this season, this festival season, I had two films out there. And they couldn't be any different. Like, one, I spent like 2 months preparing, and it's super short. I was on Super 8 Film, and it was part of a London competition where if you put together a film on Super 8 camera, you have to film it in sequence. It has to be all edited in camera. You can't, like, you'll never see your footage until it's developed. And so you literally have to shoot it in sequence. It can only be as long as your film roll, which is 50 feet, which is about 3 minutes and 16 seconds of film. And it's got to be 18 frames a second shot in. And you send in the cartridge to get it developed by a company out of London who develops the film. And then you get 2 weeks to put together a soundtrack to it. So if you wanted to add any audio, like music, it had to be original music score. And then you send that in, and then they just, literally the first frame is where the music starts, or your audio track starts, and whatever you get is what you get. And so they select 8 of them to go on to Cannes Film Festival in France, and then like another handful go on to London as well. And mine was more of a a weird tale of a lady who goes to her new apartment, and it's just a trash hole, and it's more like a weird tale, kind of in the vein of Lovecraft, and it just wasn't quite their cup of tea. I don't think it wasn't quite Cannes worthy, but it's found a really cool home in some really cool film festivals, including, which I was most proud of, coming up here in a couple weekends, I think, is the HP Lovecraft Film Festival. It's been going on for like 25 years. And
cool.
They liked it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I was really like, who cares about Cannes when, like, literally the people who can appreciate it are in love with it. It just feels so good.
That is really cool. Now, tell us a little bit about that Down to Clown too.
Yeah, and that's the other one that's like the opposite, because like I spent 0 time on that one, because like with Super 8, I had to plan it out to the T, make sure everything, like each scene. Down to Clown was me and a buddy, John Heller. We just kind of go back and forth every day. He sends me ideas, scripts. Can be overwhelming sometimes because he's always thinking, and like I think you guys can like relate to this, but like when you find people who kind of jive with the same kind of ideas and thoughts that you have, it's once you find somebody, you just unload it, like your ideas and creative stuff. But like so like once John found out, like, oh, you make films, I make films, here's my ideas, and like we just vomit up on each other all kinds of ideas. And we had this thought, he had this thought of like this clown that attack these people in a car. Like, and all he had really was like the people turn on the headlights and there's a clown standing there with like a machete or something. That was like his whole idea. And I'm like, hey, I want to put something together because there's some film festivals coming up that I'd like to be a part of. And what if instead of the clown being the psychopath, what if we had the clowns being the characters in the car? And like the clowns are fooling around, and like what would be a clown's worst nightmare? Like, and so we like literally we originally had it where it's like some sort of like nerdy office dude standing there, like the most boringest thing you could think of, like that would freak out a clown.
Yeah.
But then we really didn't have any actors lined up, so like, well, let's just put my kids in there. Clowns could be scared of kids, right? And so I'm like, yeah, perfect. And he was like, yeah, that works so well. It's like almost like we planned this. And then so like literally like we only spent like 2 hours on it. We filmed it on my driveway. We invited a couple friends of our kids over too. And as fast as we could, because I knew I only had the kids' attention for maybe an hour. Then I had pizza ready for them, so I knew if they were like knew that pizza was coming, maybe they'd give a good performance or something.
Right.
So like I filmed all the kids' a scene in an hour, and then like for the next hour I filmed the rest of it. But basically it's like these kids terrorizing. That's basically like the reveal, the twist in it. It's kids just terrorizing these clowns, but it's simple premise. It was fun. I basically. Also, John Heller filmed it, and I directed it, but he had some great equipment. You know, he had this ninja recorder that could record everything in just this raw format. It's like 4K, and it's like we can just get some intense color depth for all this stuff. And I told him, like, while we were filming, I'm like, I'm just going to make this look like it was shot on VHS, so don't worry about anything. And he's just so offended at first. But then, like, we looked at it and it looked just really good, trashy. So it looks trashy. It looks like something that you'd find in a bargain bin at a VHS rental store. It doesn't... that's my favorite kind of thing. And then I had my father-in-law, who was in Swamp Buck as the main actor. I had him... do a little soundtrack at the end, where the kids are playing with one of the clowns' heads. They're just kind of tossing around like playground style, and I have him playing a little an old kids song. The more we get together, the more we get together. He's got that really good vibrato, old guy voice.
Yep.
Singing with his guitar. It's a folksy guy, and I just love that kind of stuff. So, yeah, so two opposite ends of the spectrum. Something that we didn't spend very much time on. One that I spent way too much brain power on.
Right.
And in the end, like, had a lot of fun. Like, the Super 8 one made me a better filmmaker for sure. Preparation, everything. And then down to Clown. Just fun to come up with some just crazy idea and see if it works. It's more like an experiment, and then in the end, like in post-production, I just love just making it look trashy or making it look fun. That's where I can really just make it shine.
Definitely.
So I was wondering if you could tell us anything more about the different kinds of effects you shot in your films, like what was difficult with it, kind of issues you may have had.
Yeah, no. A lot of practicals. I'm just starting to get into practicals myself because I'm so fascinated by them. Because prior...
Right, me too.
Yeah, like, it's easier for me to do it just, like, in post a lot of times. Because, I mean, when it comes to post-production, editing, and effects, that's kind of where a lot of my my design background and stuff, that's kind of where I found my niche in filmmaking in general. But like now it's like, man, I want it to look, because when you see 3D or post like effects, it kind of looks just lame. Like it just doesn't. And I'd rather have like a good Tom Savini latex rubber.
Tom Savini's my freaking idol for
Right.
special effects.
Right, so I haven't got to that point yet, but I made a couple of cool connections more recently, and I hope to do that in the next from here on out. But one of the effects I have done, like in Down to Clown, when I need I had the idea in my head, I want these kids just playing. I want it to go from like super serious, menacing children. They're about to attack the clowns, and then I want it to like cut to the title, because in short films it's nice to be able, sometimes you can put the title like at the end of your film instead of the beginning, because it's really not that long, so
Yep.
it just sometimes makes it's aesthetically like pleasing to have the title at the end, like it makes sense then. But I knew I wanted a hard cut, and then I wanted to lighten up with the folksy song, and I wanted like the kids to be playing playground style. And I did want them tossing around a clown head. Like it was like nothing. So I took I looked on Amazon first, like heads, like severed heads and bloody heads, and like my browsing history was probably like flagged by the FBI, like what I'm looking for. But I knew I could, if I had zero budget, so I'm like, I got to do this on the cheap. I could have researched it probably a little bit more, but like literally, like I said, we put it together really fast. So what I did was I went to Hobby Lobby and got one of those foam heads for that, like mannequin heads or whatever.
Yep.
And I put the exact same clown makeup that the clowns are going to put on that. And it was already white, so it was like perfect. I didn't have to like any flesh tones or anything. So I just kind of put the clown makeup on, put the foam nose on it and the wig, and it looked like legit. And then on the bottom, I painted the bottom and designed it. I think I would have, if I had a little more time, I would have like dipped it in some, like Carol syrup or something with like some chocolate syrup, and like made it really juicy.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
I didn't have enough time, so I took like some craft paints and did a mixture of all kinds of paints at the bottom. And then there's already a little hole in the bottom of that foam head, so I shoved a bunch of yarn and stuff and like made it look like dangling nasty like
Nerve endings and stuff like that.
yes, tendons and
Yeah.
spinal cord stuff, just
Yeah,
juicy out the
that's-
bottom, and it looked pretty good. I mean, even like you couldn't
It's
really
fucking
tell.
metal, man. That's metal as shit.
You couldn't tell much, especially after putting the VHS grunge on top of everything, and just really, you couldn't tell what was going on. So it worked out pretty slick for that.
Yeah.
And then like for practicals, I think that's like I did some on the Super 8. I knew that if I had anything special in there, I had to really pull it off well. So old friend of ours, Jake Jordan, remember him from school?
Oh, yeah.
Isaiah? He put together an animation for me, because in there I wanted like mold to grow on the walls.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of like that mold is consuming my actor. And there's like, it's kind of montage experimental looking, and I knew I wanted mold growing, so he hand animated some moldy looking things, and I took some pictures ahead of time of this old nasty Jesus picture that I had hanging on the wall.
Yeah.
Because there's this really bizarre looking Jesus picture that my wife grew up with on her wall. Like literally, if you saw this Jesus picture, you'd literally like have nightmares as an adult. Like imagine as a kid having this creepy, because it looks like his eyes are, depending on when you're looking at him and how, looks like his eyes are open or shut. You can't quite tell.
That's so weird.
It's freaky, dude. It's freaky. So like I had this I knew I wanted this in the film, so it'd be cool to like have the mold grow around it. So what I did was I took a picture of it and I sent it to him. I'm like, can you make it look like mold is growing around this, and then like take the picture out? And so like he had one where it was just like nothing in the middle, but like it was square and the mold is growing around it. So like I took a projector and I projected it on the wall, and then I filmed that real time to make it look like there's mold growing, because I couldn't do anything on the computer, right? And so it ended up actually looking pretty darn good. And I actually had people like, how did you do that? I'm like, well, I just projected it on the wall and played it. And they're like, genius. But like that looked pretty sick. That looked good.
That's awesome.
What I'd like to do in my next films, making the connections that I have who are like champs at like latex and masks and stuff. I'd really like to do some good severed head, like with the skin peeling apart, and I'd like to do some cool masks too. I think that'd be really awesome, like some good monster making. I think do you remember for Swamp Buck when I had that old bear hide and I shoved the antlers through it? Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember that.
We didn't really see it ever, but I thought like that'd be pretty cool. But I think I would have spent a little more time on a really cool, like gnarly looking demon deer. But or I suppose like we did practicals during Swamp Buck, because like we had the horn like ripping through the Ryan.
Yep.
So we made him swallow a bunch of the blood. I poured it in his mouth, and then like he's like gurgling it out as he's hanging onto the deer horn that looked like it's protruding through his chest.
Yep.
But then when we did
awesome.
like the prior, I took like a rubber balloon. We had a couple guys holding his shirt. It was so ghetto, but we had this shirt that he was wearing, and then from behind, we held the shirt tight, and I thought like if I had that horn pushed through that balloon, it looked like it was piercing skin, and then like blood squirting out at the same time. It didn't look as good as I thought, so I had to like speed it up in post in my edit. But that didn't look hardly good, so I just cut it real quick. But that's probably the closest. I'm trying to think what else we did. Yeah, that's about it for now. I want to keep doing that though, because I'm so interested in that too. Like,
yeah, it's fun.
It's got such a rich history too of
yes,
monster making,
and you can
practicals.
get deep into it and do some really amazing things.
Right.
Yeah, I tell you what, though, I mean, cheap alternative. I mean, even though practical is always better, but After Effects has saved my ass so many times.
Oh man, it's easy. It's too easy to make it look good. Well,
tell you, I went to a special effects makeup contest, and they had a box out for each contestant with random items. There were things in there like napkins and tampons and just random things, and that's all they were allowed to use.
Yep.
And they all came up with something amazing.
That's cool.
So you can do it on the cheap if you're creative.
Right. That's the thing too. Like, I think some people don't even know. Like, I can't like grasp my mind around like what's possible. Like I can think a lot of times when I'm writing a script or putting something, I have an idea of a story. Mm-hmm. It's a bummer that I think I'm getting better at this, but I'm thinking of limitations while I'm writing it. Like, the script's got a lot of dialogue in it. I'm not gonna be able to afford like really good talent. So I know that I'm gonna be having my buddies in it who can't act, at all. So like I'm gonna have my speech down to very limited, and so then I'm like, okay, with practicals, well, I know I can just do this quick in After Effects, but now it's like I can start as I'm making them. I know like, oh, I can make this a little better. And speaking of practicals too, I've been helping in post-production. I've been helping these fellas out in Detroit who are putting together a movie, Psycho Ape. And that's been a blast. And they're really good. They know a lot of fun tips and tricks of practicals, and they're doing a lot of severed things. And the premise is very simple. It's a guy dressed up as a monkey in a gorilla suit, who basically goes around and kills people with bananas. And that's it. That's how it started. And so there's a lot of good blood, and practicals. If anything ever gets like severed, they have the old PVC pipe that has a little bit of a bend in it, and they fill it full of your blood, and you blow into that, and that just does a nice spray on people's faces and out people's arms and
That's so good.
cutting off legs. They're pros out there. That's been a fun trip. It started with just I put together some. They had like a call for any artists who would be willing to do a poster or some sort of artwork for them, and it's kind of blossomed into a fun relationship working with those guys and seeing the behind the scenes, and they're putting together some good work out there. It's got they ended up getting some talent on the project. Kansas Bowling and Bill Whedon from Sergeant Kabuki Man. He was the bad guy in that movie.
That's great.
Bill Whedon's just a ride. He's great in it. It's been a blast seeing the process and being a part of it. I'm really honored to be a part of it. It's pretty fun.
That's so cool. That is so cool. Yeah, like the whole behind the scenes stuff with fan films or short films rather is so unique, and it's so fun to be a part of when you do get to be a part of it, and getting to work on stuff like this is definitely awesome. Whether it be the editing or filming or clean up, color correction, whatever the case may be, visual effects. It's all just so much fun, doing it. I find myself missing that stuff a lot. That's for sure.
Yeah, man. It is like I find myself wanting to do it more and more. And if I was ever to be able to do it to get paid, oh man, I'd do it in a freaking heartbeat.
Oh, no kidding.
It's so fun. But for now, it's like I'm just going to basically sacrifice a little bit just to stay creatively fulfilled. Yep.
Definitely. So lately, what have you been using equipment-wise when you're doing your short films?
I've used pretty much everything, and a lot of times if I'm filming with my buddy John, he'll use his cameras. He's got he's gonna kill me for this, but I don't really remember what he has. It's like a Nikon, a really nice Nikon. He's just using like a DSLR. But I have a C100 that I do a lot of my corporate work with, and so that's kind of always on the back burner to use. A Super 8 camera. It's like a Zoom 750. It's really awesome. Super 8 camera. I've used my crappy DSLR too, like it's a 60D on some of my projects. I like experimenting with all kinds of different stuff. Because the more that I've done it, the more like I realize it doesn't matter really what I'm using. Yep. I think it all comes down to like a good story. If you can relate to the story, who cares what it's shot with? But like, but at the same time, I'm always looking at what the latest and greatest is out there. Like what is Panasonic doing with this? Right. What is Canon's problem? Why can't they make a good 4K camera? Like that kind of stuff. But like, I'd like to shoot more. I'm a sucker for just analog. I'd love to make a good VHS tape from the camera. Like Swamphook, I transferred over to VHS. Yep. During the process, and nobody liked it, especially Rich. Rich was like, "What is this? We're shooting on the what was it? The Sony A7S Mark II. Why does this look so bad?" And I'm like, "Because I want it to look good." And he's like, "No, we're 4K, and all this stuff." And then product wasn't all. I snuck in the VHS at the beginning and the end and just kept the middle. But like everything I can, like I think it's easier just to start shooting with what you got, because there's too many times I'll fall into the trap. Like if only I had this camera, then I fall into that all the time. I'll be a filmmaker, man. Then I can shoot my project. Like but in that case too, like it's so easy to rent these days too. Like you don't have to own
definitely.
it. For $100, you could probably get a pretty sweet camera with some good gear for, depending on how many days you need it.
Yeah.
Be pretty awesome.
Like for me, because I've got three cameras, I think. So I've got they're all Canon DSLRs for the most part. So I've got my EOS Rebel T4i. So that sucker's like 8 years old. And then I've got my 6D Mark II, which I do my photography on. And then I've got another kind of cheapy one. I've got my GoPro. And then, I ended up buying, my friggin' drone that I've used twice, in the last 2 years that I've owned it. So I've definitely fallen into that pit where it's like, oh, if I just had this, then I could do this.
Oh, yeah.
I do that all the time to myself. And I always end up talking myself into equipment I don't really need, even though it's nice having the drone because it has come in handy the 2 times I've used it for different projects. But, oh, God, it's so hard to not fall into that pitfall. And then you're spending money that you really probably don't even need to spend because, I think about some of my best work that I've done. You look at Shatterball 4, Balls to the Wall.
Oh, classic.
That was so fun. And it was all done on a cheap-ass Canon DSLR, with just that 50mm lens, which makes everything just look beautiful. And then besides that, the box was also done on that same camera, so it really is. It doesn't matter because we also had other people that were using even older cameras that were doing phenomenal work back when we were, in school still. So it really doesn't matter because obviously lighting's a key thing. If you want to get into anything equipment wise, you should invest in some kind of halfway decent lighting because how you light a scene is going to be key for anything to make it look halfway decent, and then kind of learning the best way to light something. So that's definitely a key thing. Story is definitely the most important thing, but after that I would say lighting is almost as important as story.
Yeah.
And then like camera, that's all after that. Well, even with lighting, you good sound too, because good sound and good lighting are gonna more than not make or break your video or short film.
Oh yeah, you're gonna lose me real quick if your audio is trash. Or
Yes,
sounds like you used a microphone on a freaking like a I don't know, like on your camera or like on your cell phone. Like literally, it's just that kind of audio. It's like, oh man, I'm done. Next.
Yep. Or like an old computer microphone,
Right.
like we used to do.
Yeah, like a. Oh man, yeah, and I think for me, when I'm starting to realize too, it's because I've always suffered with like having the right gear and wanting gear, but now it's like I want to find the right people. Like,
Yep.
I want to make dang good friends with people who have like-minded.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't hurt if they had some good lights, or like they had a little bit of knowledge in this area or that area, and like you surround yourself with like pros who are good at what they do. It's like you ain't gonna go wrong once you get them all together on a project.
No, definitely, because there's groups all over the place. If you look at Facebook, you've got filmmaking groups. You've got hundreds,
Right.
maybe even thousands of filmmaking groups. Some of the main ones that I would suggest is like if you've ever seen Film Riot on YouTube, especially if you're out there and you've wanted to make short films, Film Riot's definitely like a top one I would suggest because they kind of take you behind the scenes and show you how they do things for videos. And they've been doing this for like 10 years or more now too. And they show you everything from, visual effects that are done through the computer. They also do practical effects. They show you just a whole bunch of different things of what you can do. Plus, they've released their own short films on their channel too. If I were to make one suggestion, I would suggest them to check them out, especially if you want to get into making short films and stuff like that, because I think they're a good resource, especially a free resource, because there's a lot of resources out there that you could pay for, to learn stuff, but they've have 10 years worth of knowledge out there just free, on YouTube that you can use and utilize and to help make yourself better as a filmmaker and, get your products made, and show you different techniques and different things, even equipment. They do equipment reviews too. So if you are trying to find the right kind of gear to get started, even, they have a lot of videos on that too. So it's a good thing to check out, especially if you're just getting started.
Yeah, too, like, I think there's a lot of arguments these days because there's so much content on YouTube just by itself of, like, how to put together a film. You literally could spend years watching all the videos that there's out there. So, like, a lot of people are making the argument, and why go to film school and stuff? And I think there's valid reasons on both sides whether to go or not go, but, like, I would make the argument, if you want to do it, you don't have anything holding you back. But I think, like, school for me, and I know we were talking about this earlier, school can also give you that level of confidence and on the connections of people who are like-minded. And I think, like, going to school, depending on what kind of personality you are, you'll get your film done a lot faster sometimes. You'll be able to have that competitive nature come out and, like, look at other people's work and at school and, like, be like, oh, I can do better than that. I'll try way better to make them look like fools with my work and make, like, that kind of worked with me with that way. But if you want to make a film, there is plenty of resources out there to do it today, right now.
Definitely, and thinking about Film Right, they kind of got their start making their own short films, and now they have this whole community that they run, that they show people how to basically teach people how to do filmmaking for free. If you look at, like, even with short films in general, because you've got, like, people like David F. Sandberg. He is the director of Shazam. His first movie that came out was Lights Out, that horror movie. And he also did Annabelle Creation. He got to start doing short films on YouTube. He's got a channel called Pony Smasher that he has, like, years worth of short films that he's done that led up to him getting noticed because of his short film of Lights Out is what prompted them to make the full length film, because that went viral, after it went to a festival and whatnot. So, I mean, there's definitely, it's a good way to get started with filmmaking is by doing short films. And yeah, like Jason said, there's a lot of resources out there, and it's like just free for the taking. So you don't necessarily have to go to film school. Not that film school is bad by any means. It's just that there's so much out there that you could do and get your hands on that's just available there because they wanted to produce that content to be able to get people that are interested in it doing it. So yeah, there's definitely a lot out there. That is for sure.
Yeah, like I think the medium of short films in general, a lot of people could argue, like, why make a short film? Like, you can make a feature and get it distributed, or that's where you're going to make money and stuff like that. Short films is not a place to make money in, that's for sure, but it's a very easy stepping stone. Once you find your voice and you put together something good, it's easier to get noticed. Like the fellows who put together Hobo with a Shotgun and Turbo Kid, they had Treevenge before then, and that was an incredible short film.
That was great.
Like those are Canadians, right? I think those are Canadians.
I believe they're Canadian. Yep.
Jason
What's Jason? I want to say Eisenberg or
Eisner?
I could be called Eisner. Yes,
Eisner.
Jason Eisner.
Yeah, and like, yeah, you got they're like they killed it. True Revenge is I'm like one of my favorite shorts that I come back to and think about. But like, yeah, True Revenge, and then it was Hobo with a Shotgun.
Yep.
And like I love that, and that's just one of many different stories of like putting together shorts, finding a just your niche and your style, and you're able to like craft your story the way you want, and there you go. There's your feat. Now they want you on a feature. Now you can put together your own feature. Now you have proof of concept for your next Kickstarter for the bigger thing, or a proof of concept for a production house that's like, hey, we like what you did here. Here's an offer. I haven't gotten that.
Hopefully someday.
And honestly, too, like, I'm not really looking for that. If that may sound really weird, but I'm just really addicted in general, putting all the stupid stories that are in my head to put them together. Like, I can celebrate that they actually they're not my Citizen Kanes by any means,
right?
But like, that idea in my head is now finished. And like it or not, like, I got it out of my head. Mm-hmm. And was it successful? And whoever, that's not for me to decide. Like, half the time I'm in the middle of the edit of one, and I'm thinking about the next one, and want to be done with the one I'm working on and hate it. But like, just getting them out is what I'm kind of like more concerned about. I don't want to go to sleep thinking about all these different stories and never do them. That would be like a tragedy.
This has been a good discussion regarding short films. It really is kind of a good way to get into, filmmaking if that's something that you're wanting to do. And hopefully this episode is helpful for those of you out there that may have been thinking about, making a short film or wanting to get into video or anything like that. Hopefully this does help you on your journey for that. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to us through our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all at CLS Podcast. Like I said before, we will have the links down below for some of the stuff that we've worked on in the past for me and Jason, even though a good portion of it's cringy. It's all good though, because it's learning, because it's kind of where we started and kind of where we went. I'll kind of include a few different things in the description below that you can check out through YouTube or Vimeo or wherever we may have it. So, but we do hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. As always, we will see you again next week. And please, like I said before, check out the review for 3 from Hell. We want to start doing more reviews. If you have any movies in mind that you guys want to, see us review, please definitely let us know. We'd love to hear back from you guys. Otherwise, thanks for joining us this week. We will see you next week.
Thanks for joining us today for the CLS Podcast. Check us out at www.clspodcast.com or join in the conversation on social media with the hashtag CLS Podcast. Until next time, stay safe, campers.